What's going on, guys? Teddy Baldassarre from teddybaldassarre.com. If you're new to this channel, this is where we do a deeper dive and review watches available for purchase on our website as an authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry. We're going to be looking at an awesome entry-level Swiss chronograph from Tissot with their heritage 1948. So as always, review of this piece. At the end, things to consider both in the positive and negative end, and all relevant links will be in the description down below. But guys, let's take a closer look at this watch. Now, first looking at a rundown of the specs, we have a case size of 39.5 millimeters, thickness of 11.9 millimeters, lug width of 20 millimeters, lug to lug of 48 millimeters, water resistance of 30 meters, movement is an ETA 2894-2, crystal is Hazelite, and price is $1,450. TeddyBaldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry, including Tissot. If you did see this watch, though, for cheaper anywhere else at any other authorized dealer, let us know. Fill out the form on the product page, and we will give you a call immediately. Now, Tissot, amongst the many Swatch Group brands and many entry-level Swiss brands that come into consideration, I think is probably one of the leaders in the category, and probably is one of the more top-of-mind brands out there when it comes to their very aggressive but very thoughtful types of collaborations with places like the NBA. But the specific part of their catalog that I really am gravitated towards is their heritage collection. Models like the Visidate, for example, their Porto, but also the Tissot Heritage 1948 chronograph that we're going to be looking at today. When this was released in 2017 at Baselworld, I was immediately drawn into this timepiece and was actually considering picking one up for myself as a great entry door into the world of Swiss mechanical chronographs. And like the date in the name suggests, this is really paying honor to those mid-20th century chronograph designs that Tissot is so well known for. Now, first looking at this one on the wrist, and one of the probably the leading catalysts to why this was elevated on my list was its wearability. We're looking at a case size of 39.5 millimeters, thickness of 11.9 millimeters, and a good portion of that is going to come from that Hazelite crystal, and a lug-to-lug of 48 millimeters. But ultimately, you're getting a watch that's going to wear really true to those dimensions overall, wearing on a variety of different wrists out there, and even on my smaller wrist, I would have no hesitation in pulling this one off. And dealing with the thickness here, when you're looking across the board at mechanical chronographs, especially ones of the automatic variety, they're certainly usually very thick. But for this one, you don't get that at all, which is a huge added benefit of this piece. We'll get into more about the movement and how this is all possible in a bit, but also factoring in the thickness here is the Hazelite crystal, which is certainly an aesthetic choice for this timepiece and trying to mirror the vintage hue that came with mid-20th century chronographs from vintage Tissots. The case does come in predominantly high polish across the bezel, as well as on the curved twisted lugs of this timepiece. Now, between the 20 millimeter lug width, we do have a mesh style bracelet, which is going to kind of follow the traditional format in terms of bracelets of this style, which this one is going to be signed and can simply slide it across the strap in order to size it appropriately. This one, unlike many of its competitors in this similar price range, is going to wear quite well. It's rather comfy. You're not going to be dealing with as much of a hair puller here like you will with more affordable options in this styling. And I think overall does suit this piece very well and offering up a more sporty look. But if you did want to dress this one up, and I don't think it's necessarily a standardized term, but a dress chronograph, I think if there was a such thing, this would certainly qualify for that. Now, along the right side of the case, we do have a large crown that operates in typical fashion, being able to adjust the time at the farthest out position, can adjust the date at the second position, and then can be hand wound at that first position. Along the outside of that, at the 2 and at the 4 o'clock, we do have traditional chronograph pushers. The 2 o'clock is going to be your stop and start, and your 4 is going to be reset, so in pretty typical fashion there. And I will say the actual just tactile feedback of actually engaging these pushers is quite good, especially for this price. It feels solid, it feels fluid, and this is a modular design of this chronograph caliber within, so that's really saying something here. Now, casting over the front of the watch, we do have a Hazelite crystal, which I personally am a huge fan of the look of. It looks very warm, vintage, and very true to the time period in which this is really trying to embody. I will say this does have the downside of not being as resistant to scratches as a sapphire would, but when trying to mirror that overall look that they were certainly going for in trying to resemble these mid-20th century chronographs, this is definitely the thought process around it, and I think they pulled it off quite well. Now, examining this dial a little bit closer, along the farthest out point, we do have some open real estate showing that silver dial display. It is going to be featuring at each of the 15 minutes a small black printed numeral marking to mark that specific time. Taking one step inward, we have a railway style minute track, and then one step inward from there, have simple applied steel markers at each of the hour markings. Now from a chronograph display here, we have 3 registers. At the 9 o'clock, a 30-minute register. At your 3 o'clock, you'll have your running 60 seconds. And then at the 6 o'clock, we'll have a 12-hour subdial there. Between the 4 and the 5 o'clock, we do have the inclusion of a date window. It is going to be slanted off at the edges to provide a bit more of a premium look with the aperture, but for the most part, pretty straightforward here. The only other applied marker here is going to be at the 12, where it's going to actually be featuring a Roman numeral 12 here, which I will say kind of looks a bit out of place, but it does not bother me from the design. I think I personally would have opted to just stay true to the simple applied marker there, especially considering one of my favorite design attributes of this watch is that Tissot logo just beneath that. I love this retro style Tissot logo. It looks a bit more formal, dressed up, or maybe a little bit even more mature than the traditional, more modern Tissot logo. I'm a huge fan of this one. At the center, we do have a 3-hand set featuring a long, simple steel second hand, and then 2 leaf-style hands for the hour and the minute hand. Overall, I think from a design perspective, that is really why you're drawing yourself into this piece. From the twisted off lugs, the bracelet, to that Hazelite crystal, factoring in with the simple and clean symmetrical dial format. This is one of the more attractive looking chronographs in this price range, no question. Now flipping this watch over, the Heritage 1948 features a split display caseback where the ATA 2894-2 is partially in view. The split display features the engraved Tissot logo at the center and the writing of Heritage in a cursive font and other various decorations. But I think the most notable thing here is that this is a modular chronograph system. So this is going to be based off of an ATA 2892A2. Now, a couple things to consider when looking at a modular system compared to a full chronograph movement, say like a Valjoux 7750, which will be probably the common movement that you will see in comparison to this one available in this relative price range. For this one, you're going to get a much thinner movement. Many automatic chronograph movements are very thick. A Valjoux 7750, for example, is going to be just south of 8 millimeters in thickness alone of just the movement. So considering putting that into a watch, how that's going to, once you case it up, be quite a thick piece is certainly a nice factor when looking at this 11.9 millimeters in thickness on this watch that's able to be achieved here. In addition, you're also getting a lack of rotor jiggle that comes with the Valjoux counterparts because of that unidirectional motion of that rotor. You can feel it on the wrist when it is winding. So I know a lot of people that just get a Valjoux movement for the first time sometimes are perplexed and think there's something might be wrong with their movement, but that's not the case. That's just that wobble that you're going to be getting with that rotation of that rotor there. But because this is a modular system, sometimes there is a bit of a delay when engaging the second hand or engaging the chronograph. It's maybe not as smooth. I will say in the instance of this watch, I find that the activation on this piece, again, is quite good and actually is right on par with a lot of non-modular systems. Now, another point of consideration here is serviceability. Both of them have their own challenges and positives and negatives associated. If you're going for a full chronograph system like a Valjoux, there is an ability for pretty much any watchmaker to take that on if they are capable, if they're able to do just traditional servicing. For a modular system, it's not as black and white. There's a lot of times where you might want to just go back to the manufacturer, just given the actual construction of the modular system, given the additional parts that are actually needed and to take care of. In a lot of cases, like for Tissot, they have great service costs, especially if you're getting a factory warranty with this, which I would definitely recommend in the case of getting a chronograph. It gives you a lot of peace of mind when you're coming down the road, but you are talking years down the road for service interval. This will be able to take away for quite some time if we have any worries or any challenges with it. But Tissot does offer pretty reasonable full service costs, even for chronographs. For three-handers, it's even more accommodating. But just some things to consider here. It's not completely black and white. Do I really think you need to overthink this very much? No, but I think it is important to know somewhat of the differences between a modular and a traditional chronograph system. Now, speaking to this movement, it does operate at 28,800 vibrations per hour, 4 Hertz, features hacking and hand winding, so it's hacking, stopping the second hand when pulling out the crown at the farthest position, has a 42-hour power reserve, and for accuracy on this one, just giving some anecdotal evidence, running at -4 seconds a day. Now, let's just take a closer look at this watch, just overall, just some things to consider. Now, I have to be honest, this is probably one of my favorite looking chronographs from an entry-level Swiss perspective. I've mentioned this watch many times in several videos in the past. I'm a huge fan of it and definitely recommend it for many people out there. I think a couple points of maybe consideration is just the Hazelite crystal, you are maybe dealing with more of an appeal towards the design front than maybe the durability front with that decision there with the crystal choice. From a style point of view, this is not going to be for everybody. This is, for lack of a better term, a dress chronograph. But for the people that this is in line for, I think this checks off a ton of boxes. For one, I really do love the design of this. I think 39 millimeters is a very solid, just middle of the road, modern size for a chronograph nowadays. The wearing experience is quite good. The bracelet is solid for the price, but you also have a variety of different strap options at your disposal. And from a dial layout perspective, very symmetrical and very tasteful. And I think ultimately that's why you're going in the direction of this piece. This watch is going to look appropriate in a variety of different situations, on a variety of different straps, and I think is a great entry door into the world of Swiss mechanical chronograph. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that. Also, hit the link in the description if you are interested in learning more about this piece and also purchasing it. We're an authorized dealer of all the brands that we carry, full factory warranty, and one of the most secure places you can buy a watch online. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.